Hi, I'm Ada Bobineau, and I am the founder and the director of the San Antonio Black International Film Festival. And we have a special panel today. Of course, our festival is focusing on Black women creatives, cis stars in cinema. But we wanted to go into different departments throughout the festival. So we are so happy to have gathered together some sisters who are in the costume department. So we're going to welcome Cinema Dressings. Let's talk costumes. So we have three ladies that will be joining us today. All are stationed in Atlanta, Georgia, living in Atlanta, Georgia, from different parts of the country, and just kind of doing their own thing. So we'll talk about costume departments and more. So I'm going to bring to the stream Rocky, who is with the San Antonio African-American Quilting. Is it association or organization?
Quilt Circle.
Mm-hmm. And she does some awesome quilts. We wanted to bring Rocky into the conversation. She's a engineer by trade, but she does quilting, self-taught quilter, as well as a jewelry maker. So we want to bring her to the screen. And then we have Soraya Monet.
Hello.
She is, of course, out of Atlanta as well. Started off as an actress, correct?
Yeah, well, I've always been in fashion, but I just saw acting or doing background work as a way for me to get into the costume department. Right. So that's what I did. Yes.
So that is, we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
And then we have Michelle Booker. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi.
Michelle, again, is out of Atlanta as well, and she is a stylist. Okay, so we'll talk about that as well. And then lastly, we are going to bring in, let me bring it to the stream. I got to add you. There you go. There we go. And we have Therez Fleetwood. Therez, I thank you because you helped bring everyone together.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So we're just so happy to have you all, because one thing is we don't know enough about the different departments that are on major movies and television sets. And so it's a thing like, how did you get there? How do you get in? You know, and those type of things are important. And what goes on within the department while you're there. So we want to really jump into the conversation there. But first, I want to just get an idea. And Rocky and I are going to just both kind of jump in and ask questions. We're all like bright and bushy-tailed, just like want to listen and learn. But I just want to get a sense of each of your backgrounds and how, you know, where you're from, what do you do prior to working on sets and everything? I mean, is this your career outside of working on different movies, and your specific job areas within the costume department? Let's start with you, Soraya.
Hey guys. So I'm originally from Ohio, and I moved down to Atlanta when I was way younger. So Atlanta's like my second home. I've been here for a while, but I've always been into clothes and fashion. So, you know, it's like a typical teenager, worked in retail stores, worked in clothing stores. And from there, I became a fashion merchandiser. And I did that for almost 10 years. And I was also an assistant to a local stylist here in Atlanta. So I already came into the industry with some a foundation or some knowledge. And I knew a couple people who worked in the industry, but, you know, no one ever really opened that door for me. So I switched gears and I started to do background work. And I saw it as a way to network and to meet people and to see what the other departments were doing. And that's how I wound up getting into costumes. I just networked. I spoke to people. I made it known what I wanted to do. I let everyone know what my intentions were, and I was very clear about it. And now I'm here. I'm doing what I want to do. So, yeah.
And your title is costumer.
Costumer. So, and a lot can, you know, depending upon which job you're working on, there, you know, you could be, for instance, right now in the project I'm working on, I'm a shop costumer, but I've also been a fitter. So, or you could be a background costumer, you could be a principal costumer. So costumer is just a general term, but depending upon the project that you work on, you know, your title can change or it can be varied.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Therez, what about you? About you have some other things going on. I checked out your website and romance
We'll only talk
connoisseur.
about film today, okay?
Oh my, this girl got it going
That's
on.
a whole nother topic. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Gosh, I've been sewing and designing since I was 14. So we're going on over 30 years, basically. And I started my own fashion company in New York City about 30 years ago. And I was dressing a lot of celebrities. I had a mail order catalog. I was selling to stores. I was doing shows internationally, over a lot of shows overseas in Africa. I've been to about 20 different countries around the world doing fashion shows and things like that. I'm one thing I'm really proud of is I am people who go to school for fashion design. I have some of my designs in the Fairchild book for history and the history of fashion design. I'm in five of their school books, which is very impressive, which I'm so excited about. Also, I am the only outside designer who designed for Disney. I designed the kente cloth costumes for Minnie and Mickey Mouse. So being a designer in this circle, I meet a lot of designers. I have a lot of designer friends. And when I moved to Atlanta, I was referred to working on my very first film, which was Bessie, which was 5 years ago, by a fellow designer. They needed someone to day play. And what day play means is you come in if somebody's not available or if they need extra people. And I got bit by the film bug. I'm like, oh my gosh, wait, I didn't even know all of this existed. I didn't even know how it all operated. But once I was there and around so many incredibly talented people, I said, okay, this feels right for me. So it was from that point on that I had my little toe in there and I just jumped right in and I've been loving it ever since.
So wait a minute, I'm still on Mickey and Minnie have
Right?
I've never seen that dress.
Well, if you Google Mickey and Minnie in their kente costumes, I designed them for they had the Miss Black Collegiate African American pageant. And they were holding it at Disney World in Florida. And they wanted Mickey and Minnie to wear kente costumes. And it was between me and another designer. You know, whenever there's a challenge, I jump right in. So they contacted the both of us to design costumes for Minnie and Mickey Mouse. And I was determined to win this challenge. And anyway, they ended up picking my designs, and
wow,
the costumes became part of their 150 special costumes.
We have a history maker right here. Mickey and Minnie and Kente. I'm going to Google that. Yes, I will.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. Okay, Michelle Booker.
Yeah. Wow. I'm sorry, Therez. I've known this woman for a few years, and all this is new. Like, oh my God, so impressive.
Thank you.
Well, wow. But I actually got, oh my God, when did I get started? I don't know if it was from cutting fabrics from my mom's clothing when I was young. Maybe it started then. I literally used to cut fabrics, her skirts, and put it on my Barbie and march them down the hall. So it's like, you know how you have this childhood dream of being whatever, but it led till today. Like I studied fashion marketing, fashion merchandising at AIU. It's a local school here. It's American Intercontinental University. So it's a little stronger than SCAD. But anyway, I studied merchandising with the hopes of opening a boutique store. I mean, I love fashion, just like Soraya. I love fashion. I worked in retail for probably a span of 10 years, being a personal stylist at Nordstrom, Macy's, some other stores like Express. So it's like it's always been instilled in me. And the funny thing is, I used to work in corporate. I have 2 sons, so it was like, okay, I got to work in corporate because I got to pay the bills. So I used to be the bag lady, the jewelry lady, because I used to sell bags and jewelry out of my trunk. Like, you know, employees used to come down and, you know, get jewelry out my trunk, and I did. It was legal.
Mhm.
It was
Specify, it's legal.
Legal-ish. You did the little scratch mark.
I used to sell bags and jewelry out of my trunk, but how did I jump from leaving corporate to film? Actually, my husband is a tailor, which both of these young ladies, Soraya and
Mhm.
Therez, know. He's worked on a lot of films, but he actually sent my name. I don't even know who he sent my name to, but I started with commercials. I did commercials for like 2 years with like Nike and Ford and some of the promo ads that you've seen on the television or whatever, but small promos. But the big ones were Nike and Ford. Actually, I did two Fords, but it started with commercials. Like I didn't even know the side of the movie. I just was like focused on commercial. Commercials used to go on for like, I don't know, 3 to 7 days. And then you find another project. And like Soraya said, you have to network.
Mhm.
Like, even if you're in a union, you got to network to jump from project to project. And so that's how I kind of transitioned my way into film and worked on movies as a buyer. Actually, the title is costume buyer. And what that is, I actually go shopping for the actors. I shop the costumes that you see on TV or the commercials at that point. Like I actually purchase those, and the fashion designer puts them together, but I'm actually the shopper that goes out and buy the costumes.
That sounds like fun.
Well, it's fun for like the first 4 hours. But when you're on your feet for like 12, going into the 14th hour, because you're going to shut the stores down.
Wow.
I don't care if it's a Walmart. If they're open to midnight, I've actually been in stores to like 11 o'clock, like a Target. So it's fun, and it's like, it's kind of glam, when you're going into the stores and you're like, oh, I'm a costume buyer. But yeah, after that 12 hours, it's not. Your feet hurt and you're rushing through traffic. Anyway, I could go on and on about that, but that's basically what I do, a costume buyer for the actors.
Okay, cool. Rocky, you had a go ahead, Rocky. You had a question?
I was just Michelle, hearing you talk, it started to make me think of, have you ever been in a situation where, right, you've been shopping and they cut the scene or they change the scene, which causes for a different wardrobe, and like what have you ever had to do that, and what like did you have to go through for that?
Oh yeah, that's my favorite. You're shopping in one store and they're like, oh, we changed this, and you literally have to drive maybe 20 miles out to find that other costume. So yeah, that happens all the time, and you get used to it. You get used to the driving, you get used to the rush, because you got to have it back at a certain time. I would say being a stylist and a buyer is like, oh, even with tailoring, like everything is like time. You got to have it back. You got to be there. Yeah, but that happens a lot.
Yeah, as I was listening to your intros in terms of all of you all from different places, and Atlanta seems to be the industry right now that is really competing with Hollywood, since there's a lot of productions that go on there. With the different roles that you all have, just talk about, did you have to have any prior training? I know you said you did seamstressy with your mom, whatever. Was there any education involved, going to college, or do you not need college? I mean, what is the track to get into costuming other than networking, and how do you get in? Anybody can answer that.
Well, I can say working in the department that I work in, there falls 3 different categories, and there's seamstress or stitcher, there's tailor, and then there's cutter fitter. Each of these roles you have to be skilled in, because not only are you working with different types of fabrics, from heavyweight wovens to knits to chiffons and fabrics that are half an inch thick, you have to really be skilled in putting garments together and understanding construction. So I would say, now there are some people who are self-taught, And I realize people with self-taught, they have a totally different hustle. And I love that. I love that hustle. And then there are some people who have gone to school, but I would say anybody interested in being a tailor, stitcher, cutter, fitter, you have to be very skilled and very precise in your work. So yes, if you go to school or if you get private lessons, all of that definitely helps.
Now you talked about a tree, a family tree, a costume family tree. Can you break that down, how that is structured? And
Sure.
From the designer on down.
Yeah, so I had to make my little notes. I remember.
Oh, okay. No,
okay, so yes, it's a costume designer, which everybody knows. The costume designer is the one who really develops the characters, the look for the characters of the story. And they're the head of the costume department. And they're normally the ones that work closely with the director, the production designer, and the producer. And then you have the assistant designer, and that's the right hand to the costume designer. They help them with the research, the shopping, the rental of garments, and the fitting of all the characters. And then you'll have the key costumer, which Soraya mentioned as well. And she said there's different areas in costuming. So the key costumer is one who helps to maintain the costume designer's vision while on set. And they're responsible for maintaining the continuity of the costumes during filming. And then you have a truck costumer who works on the trailer. There are some productions where you go to different locations, and on locations, all the garments are packed into that trailer. So they're responsible for tracking and maintaining the costumes for the duration of the show. And then you have the cutter fitter, which I just mentioned. And what a cutter fitter does, we work very closely with the designer. When a designer has an idea in mind, they'll sketch it out, they'll bring us the fabrics, they'll give it to us. We have to, this is where the skills comes in as well. We have to know the actor's measurements, we have to make the patterns according to the measurements, and we have to understand construction and how fabric works in creating garments. It's very specific. And then, like I said, the stitcher, there are stitchers who, come and we all work together. And that's the beautiful thing about this, especially in the department that I work in. We all work together as one smooth wheel, just rolling along. And then lastly, there is a department called the ager dyer. And what the ager dyer does on specific costumes, they may have to put blood on there. They may have to dirty it down because they were rolling in the dirt, or they may have to age it down because the white is too white for camera. They have to bring, just make it a little more dull. So they're responsible for throwing. I remember a really quick story. I remember one production I was working on, they came up with one of the garments that we had made, and I had to do an alteration on it, and it was covered with donkey poop. It looked literally like donkey poop. I didn't even want to touch it at first. I mean, that ager dyer did such a good job at putting that poop on there. But these are things that people don't realize. These all go on behind the scenes. And even like Michelle said, when she shops, and she a lot of times has to bring them to our department, the cutter, tailor, fitter, sewer, and we have to make it fit the actor, because you don't just pull it off the rack and it goes straight to the actor. All of that needs to be tailored to the actors. So
I would also like to add to that too. Therez mentioned a lot of the more creative positions, but in costumes, we also have a supervisor and we have a coordinator as well. So even if you're interested in working costumes, but you may not have the skill set of a cutter fitter or a stitcher or a truck costumer or whatnot, there's a managerial side to it as well, which is also great. So if you have managerial skills, or if you've worked in business, if you're good with money, there's positions in costumes for you as well.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. You never know when you think about a certain role or career, all these other things that are underneath it, right? I have that same way in technology. There's so many different roles that you can be than just thinking that you have to be a developer, right? And so that's the same way. One thing, Therez, that stood out to me a lot, and just pairing this with the idea of how can people get started, right, with local films and documentaries in their own cities. And the one word that you said that stuck out to me was construction, like understanding construction. So in me, I'm thinking, like the science behind fabrics, right? Or that you need to know and understand and threads. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that when you talk about construction?
Well, when I talk about construction, there's a big difference in, say, sewing knits as opposed to sewing woven. And knowing how, if an actor is going to move a certain way on screen, we may have to, on screen, if there's a fitted garment, we may have to add a gusset to give them proper movement. It's just really understanding how the stitch width on certain fabrics. It's understanding how pockets are placed. It's understanding how to finish garments off, because very soft, spongy fabrics require a different construction than they work differently in construction depending on what it is you're making. I can make it's the same coat out of 3 different fabrics, but they all have to be finished a little differently. And you have to understand how all that works when you're creating garments, basically.
That's interesting. I have a follow-up question now, because I'm like, okay, so you think, how do you get your kind of like film or commercial notes, right, for the actors or the scene, right? So you kind of have an idea if you're the designer and you're actually having to create clothing. And so this scene or for this segment, they're just going to be standing still and being, virtuesque or something, or they're going to be in the Thunderdome. Like, how do you as a designer get your notes, and how early do you get your notes to start to really think about the construction of their costumes or their wardrobes?
Well, all of you all would get different type of notes, wouldn't you? I mean,
yeah. And see, I'm not a designer, so I really can't answer that question for you.
But you do.
Yeah, I'm a designer outside of movies, but for movies, I really can't answer that question. We work very closely with the designer, and they give us the vision of what they want, and we have to bring that to fruition.
I would say,
who said the same thing? Or you can go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, I was going to say, as a buyer, like we have to read the scripts. We have to be ahead of when they're filming, because you have to, just like the designer, which I work hand in hand with the designers, the assistant designers. We have to know that story. We have to visually see that story of that character. If they're like a badass, if they're just a Southern, like, I actually have notes, like when we're out shopping, like, okay, this is the stay-at-home mom. Like, we actually have to have that character. Like, what would a 40-year-old mom of 3 who stays, we have to know, like, what would she wear? And research is very big as a buyer. Like, you got to read the script. You have to know the research. And also, buyers have to know fabrics also. Like when a designer is like, okay, we're looking for knit this, or a fabric that looks like, and I don't know, Therez, you know about this, like a fabric that looks like a shower curtain. That's an inside joke, but designers, they have their eye for things, and you have to know fabrics, which I studied in school. So it's not necessary, but it will make your job so much easier as a stylist and a buyer to know fabrics, to know how to read a script, how to break down a script, which kind of transitions into an assistant designer, which I've done before as well. But you literally, like, buying and going shopping, when people see you out, like, oh, you're just shopping. No, I got to know these fabrics, and I got to know the character I'm shopping for.
So is it different? I wanted to, like, when you read the script and you see in the characters, but is it different when the person is cast, like an actor is cast in that character, that you didn't see that particular actor when you read the script? Does your whole buying and would that change to go, oh this will look better on them because they're light skin, or they're dark skin, or they're heavy, or they're thin? Would that change for you as a buyer?
That we take it in account. That is taken in account. But as far as the character, because once you add the makeup and the hair, like, they become a different person. So although, like, the size, it doesn't matter, but when they're cast for that character. But as far as, like, skin tone, you have to actually, you're right, shop for that person's skin tone or their size. So you have to take that into account.
Yeah, because sometimes when you read the script, it may be different. You may be visualizing somebody different for that stay-at-home mom or that runner.
Oh
And
yeah.
when they cast somebody, you're like, ooh.
Yeah, and then you gotta like picture them because you know you have your pictures of the actors on our systems as far as looking at them like okay what would look good on them but also how would they look as a stay-at-home mom. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, Soraya, you had something you were going to say.
Oh yeah, to piggyback off of what Therez and Michelle said, we do have quote unquote tools that we use to assist with that when you're building the character or when you're deciding or making decisions for the characters. So we have like one-liners, we have our day out of days, we have shooting schedules. There's tons of other things that we use to kind of keep track of what's going on. And the script tends to update a lot. They make a lot of changes.
Mm-hmm.
So and with that, sometimes things change for the characters. They may not always stay the same, or they may not stay in that same costume, or something about the costume may change according to what they're doing in the scene now. So, you do have to stay on top of that.
Mm-hmm. We were talking before we got started, and I just can't wrap my brain around when you have a scene like a Coming to America 2, like you worked on,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a gazillion extras, and they're in a period piece, or for this particular case, it was in Africa. It was an Africa, make believe Africa place. So, how does the interworkings of that work when you have so many extras to fit and costume, and can you all just kind of give us unravel how that is done? I mean, do you have 5 months ahead to prepare for that? I mean, how does that go?
It's definitely a team effort.
Mm-hmm.
So you have each certain people, depending upon your role or your title, that focus on one aspect. I would say, you have this big chunk of whatever, and you're just breaking it down into smaller pieces. So, you have your BG coordinator. On Coming to America, we had a BG coordinator.
What's that?
So they helped with getting things together or talking with our extras casting. So then you can get a schedule of how many background actors we're going to fit in each day, and which background actors we need, and what do we need them to look like, and what scene it's going to be. So they will help schedule that and get all that together. And on the other side of that, you have the fitters. So the fitters actually coming in and fitting the background. They're turning them into a character, and you're doing it on the spot. You're creating this character for this person on the spot. You're just seeing them for the first time. You're just seeing their face, their body type, everything. And we have a stock room full of costumes and purchase items that Michelle would go out and buy. And then even on Coming to America, even the tailors would make costumes, pre-made costumes for background. And so, we had this huge stock room full of options. And then you have your key costumer that Therez mentioned. They would have everything organized and set up on set. What time is everyone going to be coming in? What time does the background need to come in? Usually come in hours before we even start to shoot to get everyone dressed.
Mm-hmm.
We had days we had over 100, 200 people. So, and then they get broken up in time slots. You may have 20 people come in at 4:30 in the morning, and then you may have another 20 come in at 5. So they break it up in like kind of time slots, so you're not getting bombarded with so many people at once. And then, before that, you're getting all the costumes prepped and ready to get shipped out to set. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole nother person or team doing that. And you have different ways you can have that set up. Sometimes you set up in alphabetical order. Sometimes it's by number. Their costumes are there. They're already set up, steamed, ready to go. So, I mean, it's a really tedious process. It's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of people to accomplish it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that's also Coming to America was a huge production. That's how Soraya and I met, and I was a stitcher on that show. But in that being such a huge production, there were under the wardrobe department, there were different areas of the building that we were in, because the main area where they were designing for the lead actors, there were probably about 10 stitchers and 4 key cutter fitters, and then just huge. And then the area that I was in, BG means background. So the background, which Soraya mentioned, so many clothes, so many, and I was the stitcher in that department. Now this is a big production. Now I have worked on shows where I was the only tailor, and we still had these same, the key costumer and assistant designers and things like that. So it really depends on the size of the production that a person is working on, because it could be huge or it could be very small.
That's very true.
Mm-hmm.
So
sometimes you're taking on more than one role too because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Sometimes, you may be a key costumer, but because it's a small production, you may also be the background coordinator too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
sounds stressful.
Yes.
You know what? It can be, because they are working at film is long hours. They're 10-hour days. That's why you have to love it. If you don't love it, it'll weigh you down. And I love it. I mean, you all know me, right? Mm-hmm. Hi, good morning. They're like, here she goes again. But I love what I do, and I think it's so important that we have to love what we do, because it is a lot of work. It really is, no kidding. I mean, some days it can be slow, and then some days you're in all day just constantly going. So you have to really love what you do.
And be willing to sacrifice, because you're going to sacrifice time away from your family, your kids, yourself.
Yeah.
You're gonna I mean, and honestly, a 10-hour day, in my opinion, is a good day, because really 12, 14, 16-hour days is a reality.
Yeah.
It is a true reality.
But there's an out date. It's not, there's an out. This production is from this day to this day. So you can.
Well, you may not know when you start. I have yet to work a production and know like when my hard out date is as soon as you get hired. So you may kind of be able to guesstimate a little bit, but even that is up in the air. Things happen. The budget can get cut, or just anything can happen. Crazy stuff happens, and you can end up having to leave sooner than you thought, or even later. So you never know. It's a lot of you don't know.
You should write a book on what you don't know about
you think you know it, but you don't know.
Because even as a buyer, you want to stay looking like a buyer or a stylist, but most days I'm in a hat and sneakers because I'm running.
Yeah.
All of your experiences are amazing, and just this go, get it done, but like this passion and just being excited about the work. I wonder if you guys could each kind of talk about thinking about your first time, your intro job into this work, and then where you are now. What would be like your words of affirmation or your love letter to the next future Black designers, costumers, fitters, or things that you learned or that you would want to encourage them with?
Love letter or warning?
Yes. Yes.
I would say be your authentic self. Be you full-heartedly. Don't change for anyone. Don't think you have to be someone else. Don't think you have to wear your hair differently. Don't think you have to dress differently. Don't think you have to talk differently. Go in there being who you are. And that's how you're going to stay in the business. And that's how you're going to be happy in this business, by being your authentic self.
And I would say constantly hone your craft. And one thing, and I just love Soraya, and this is one of the main reasons why I wanted her on this, because when I met Soraya on Coming to America, and when we talked, she had a vision. She knew where she was going. She knew where she started and knew where she was going. And I always gravitate to women's energies like that, because that's how I was coming up in my career. So it's like, hone your craft and learn everything you can, within the departments, because you may start off one place and say, you know what, but I really like what's going on over there. Let me see what that's about. That might fit my sensibilities better than what I'm doing here. So keep your eyes open, and just whatever you do, wherever you go, whatever department, just give 110%. And that's what I love about this girl over here. She always just gave.
Hey,
so much. I knew I missed that girl.
Oh, nice.
Well, I would say, actually, I started as a PA, which is a production assistant.
Good
That's
point.
how I got
Yes,
my
good
foot in
point.
the door. I started that way and just networked my way through. And although, my spouse was in it, it was like I had to prove myself. That's how I was able to go year after year, project to project, because I had to prove myself. And like Therez said, like, you know your craft, study your craft. When I first started, I didn't know about the periods. I actually purchased a book to learn about the periods, because I knew projects that I worked on. I love vintage. Like, I had to learn that. So it's I would say learn your craft. I worked as a costumer before. I worked as an assistant designer. Like, go travel around the department. I realized I don't like working on set. Like I like to be out. I like to be out there, so I'm like, fine.
Why is that? Why is that? Give us an
I-
idea of what sets like, as opposed to not being on set.
Boring.
You want a candy coated?
No, don't want candy coated.
No candy coated. I don't like sitting around. Buying you're moving. I don't like sitting around, and I don't like catering. In a sense of you're waiting and it's like, oh, let me do this, let me fix this. I like to be out. I'm a very independent spirit. I like to be out and about, getting I want to say SHIT, getting things done.
Yes,
Getting it done. But just move around the department and see what you like, see what you don't like. Be true to yourself, like Soraya said. Don't take any BS from anyone. I don't care who it is. Have the level of respect for yourself and others. Don't. And that's another. There's a lot of egos, a lot of egos in film, like from cast to crew. Just don't take any. Something I think I just had a memory, but
Get on me late, honey, okay?
A little trauma response going on.
you have to think. Don't wear your feelings on your sleeve, like they say. Just go in, work on your craft, stick to what you're there for, network. And as far as getting in, and what I tell people, like when I'm out shopping, they're like, how do you get started? Because they think your stylist is a glam job, but it's not.
Yeah.
I tell people it's not. 12 hours on my feet. Because I like it. I love shopping. I love merchandising. Like, you gotta love it, like Therez says, excuse me. But I tell them to go to the YouTube unions, the Facebook groups. Like you really gotta be out there researching and talking to people when they're coming in your stores, when they're coming in your companies. Like, talk to people that's in film. How do I get started? Get their number, get their email. Don't harass them, but reach out. Like, I would start as an assistant, and what I think Soraya said this before, like if you're in finance or accounting, like there's so many departments in film, from being an accountant, being a coordinator. Like, you literally don't have to just do costume unless you're really interested and you love it, but there's so many departments.
And that was say that's one of the things. I come from a small Black independent film background where you do everything. And so for me, my first experience as a PA was on Hawk back in the day. I don't know if y'all remember Avery Brooks on Hawk when they were in DC, and it was like 2 degrees and I was freezing, my toes were freezing. But I started off as a production assistant, and what just amazed me was all of the different departmentalized. Everything is department. Everything is a department. Everybody, and you can't touch this and that department. You can't go in. So starting in as a PA is a great start. If you're coming on, if you're not going to do the actress route and then network and then make your way in, but that is a great start. I want to know, based on y'all's experience, what are the challenges that you face with various productions and those that you've had to overcome? Can you think to something back in, Soraya? I see you like, Black women, and typically productions do not have a lot of us on set. When you talk about, I don't know about Atlanta, but different in Hollywood. So were there challenges for you as a Black woman coming into this? Are you typically working under a white designer or a Black designer? I mean, what are the challenges you faced that you had to overcome?
I think it's just like in any other profession. There aren't a lot of us. So that tends to be very true. Every once in a while, you may get on a production that's predominantly Black or a minority, but in general, there's only a few of us in each department. So, and that's that is why I mentioned earlier, being your authentic self. And I made it a point on the project that I'm currently working on that I was going to walk in there every day and be my authentic self, because they get to walk in there and be their authentic selves without being judged or anything like that. And so I'm going to grant myself that same grace. I'm going to walk in there and be my authentic self, and either you like it or you don't. But either way, I'm good. And I'm going to represent myself in the way that I wish to, that I choose to. And I have personally, kind of dealt with that backlash a little bit, because they're not used to that. And I had to get to a point with myself and say, well, you're going to have to get used to it, So for me, that's been my biggest thing, is being comfortable enough to be me and be unapologetic about it. And it can be difficult, and you're definitely going to get pushback, but it's a beautiful thing. And like, I feel good walking there every day, rolling up in there, playing my Tupac, or, speaking how I normally speak, you know what I mean? So I've made it a point to talk to people and treat people how I treat everybody else that I normally come in contact with. But like I say, you might get some pushback. You might get a couple eye rolls or a couple stares or whatever, but it's like, we here. And it's not changing. So get used to it.
Yeah, and I do agree with that. And everything you said, Soraya, you have to be authentic, and you have to stand your ground, and don't let anybody push you around, because when you come in and you're good at your craft. I just worked on a film. I was the only Black woman in the whole costume department. Now, if I were to bring someone else in, I would look for another Black woman or another Black man. One thing that I noticed, especially I met Michelle working with her husband. Her husband looks out for me, rock solid. He's like, we need some melanin up in this department. And he's been a true friend, a true confidant, and just in terms of educating me in this industry. So when I say we look out for each other, and I do the same, there's another young woman that I work with that I educate her on. So we try to really pull in our people when we can, because if you walk around production outside of wardrobe, sometimes there's none of us. Nice. Okay, we're like the little salt, sprinkled around the pizza, whatever. So yeah, and then even with that, it's like, I'm very much a stickler for scheduling in time. So I don't like feeling disrespected with my time. Come to me, sit down, let's be organized. I'm extremely organized. And I think that's probably one of my biggest pet peeves. It's like, don't come to me at 6:30 telling me I got something to complete by the end of the day when it's time to go home. Okay, when this could have been talked about at 12 o'clock and we could have had it done. So it's like just really knowing your worth putting your foot down, but in a very diplomatic way. It's no attitude, none of this stuff up in there. It's like, wait a minute, hold on, let's talk about this. And then that's how you get to rectify a lot of situations that may come up. But you got to be secure in yourself in order to do that too, or otherwise you will be pushed around.
Yeah,
You made a very good
love
point.
that. Yeah, I love that. And it's just hearing you all, and we go back to that authenticity. And so there was a little bit, Soraya, of what you said. For me is like this, are you operating from scarcity or abundance in who you are, right? And who you decide to come forward, right? And so every day when you get whiplash or get hit with something, you're going back to that, like, how do I make sure, am I okay? And the only way for me to be okay is to bring forth my authentic self, of course,
Absolutely.
in respectable way of doing business. But it's really about, you know, a lot of times because of our hair, the way that we look, or speaking up equates to being black and angry, right? Sometimes, or having an opinion, that sometimes that can so much make us silent, isolate us. But operating from that and always coming back to that center, right? Of, am I being my authentic self? Am I operating in abundance today? And how can I do that to move forward? I'm affirmed in all of the knowledge that you're dropping and all of the words you're saying. So just thank you. And I think that's really important. And especially in this industry where you talk about there's not a lot of us there, for us to remember that we don't have to change or put the mask on, right, in order to survive anymore. That's not the way for us to survive or thrive, is to bring your full self forward, especially as working in a creative space, right? So just that was amazing. Ooh, those is good, some gold nuggets. Be watching, be listening. The one thing that was coming up that I was thinking about, I read all your bios. Like, I'm a sci-fi nerd, so when I saw Loki and Nettie Okafor, I was like, ooh, I was super excited. So one of the things that I would really like to know is, like, for everybody, for all your projects or things, what's next on your agenda, and then what would you like to do next, if you can tell, if you can share?
I'm currently working on the sequel to Black Panther, so I'm really excited about that. And after this, I'm not sure where I'm going to end up, but I have always wanted to travel for work, so I've been putting that out in the universe and manifesting that. So hopefully I will be, you know, traveling somewhere tropical with sand and the beach to work. But I will say, like, currently the ultimate project for me would be like a coming of age story set in the 90s for Black girls growing up in like Atlanta or New York. That would be my like ultimate project to work on. I think that would be really dope.
Write it.
Yes, I will sell it.
Gonna do it.
So who's next? Therez, what about you? Where do you want to go after?
I'm getting ready to work on, next week I start working on Legacy. I think it's in its 5th season. Is it its 5th season, Michelle?
I believe so.
Yeah, 5th season. I'll be coming on board as a tailor. And then after that, I'm actually looking to make a lateral move in this industry. I'm not talking about it now because I don't want to jinx myself, but and there's a lot that goes into the process of making this move. So that's all I'm going to say. But it doesn't feel
You got it.
Let me ask you this before I go. Well, you're a designer, period, by trade. You do weddings, gowns, and all of that. Do you have a desire to design for movies as well? And if not, why not?
No, because costume design, it's such a specialized skill. And understanding a costume designer, you have to know history. You have to know, period pieces. You have to understand the way clothing fits into certain scripts and stuff like that. Completely different than designing a collection. And I don't have that skill set, and I'm not interested in acquiring that skill set. No.
Okay. That's cool. No, that's good. Good to know. Michelle, what about you?
Well, I transitioned into having my own styling company, and I also have an online store. So I'm doing an entrepreneurial journey right now. And actually, I've worked with a fashion designer as far as supplying a few of my pieces for the show. So I want to be that source. I want to become the resource at this point. But I'm not going to say I'm going to like I've turned down a few projects as far as being a buyer. I'm not going to continue maybe to turn out. It has to be a special project. And I'm with you, Soraya. Like for beautiful women in the city, positive storylines, no drama, just really good storylines. Like to be a part of a project like that Soraya made, right? Like
If only I knew how to write.
yeah, that she may, produce.
Now, you all still work on independent films too, do you not?
I have not. I have never worked on an independent film.
I have.
Me neither.
It was an international film. It hasn't even. Yeah, I've worked on an international film. It's called Violence of Action. It's more so a European film, but it was done here in Atlanta for like 2 months, and that's where I was an assistant designer because it was small here. And just like Soraya said before, you can wear several hats when it's a smaller project. But other than that, that's the only independent film I've worked on.
Mm-hmm. Being in Atlanta and with Tyler Perry Studios there, and has that made a difference for you all in working with that particular production? And I think Tyler Perry's there, and also the brother who did Being Mary Jane. I can't think of his name, the producer. But I know there's a lot of action in Atlanta now. Has it increased more so than what it used to be when you first started out? Does it make a difference that everybody's coming to Atlanta now to Tyler Perry's to do?
Atlanta's popping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is growing, and the reason that we know it's growing is because they don't have enough people to fill certain spaces.
Yeah.
Like working in the sewing, the stitching, the tailoring department, trying to find skilled seamstresses is a challenge for us. So yeah, there's a lot going on. All the good people are working, and so I find myself, last season on the project I worked on, we had to really train, girls right out of school who were not skilled at all, and sometimes it could be very frustrating. But on the other hand, if I'm just a young Black woman, I want to make sure they learn this craft if this is what they want to do. So
this is right out of the fashion merchandising school in particular. Is it particular schools?
The fashion schools, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that's in Atlanta. So are y'all unionized? Are you union? And what does the union do for you? How do you get into the union? Is that important to be in the union? How does that work under the costume banner?
So Georgia's a right to work state. You don't technically have to be in the union to work in the film industry. I personally, I worked a few years in the industry without being in the union. So when I finally joined, I was considered a journeyman. So meaning I've worked in the industry and I think I had like 3 or 4 years of experience before I joined. So, when people vote you in, they see, oh, well, this person has, 3-4 years of experience. I'm sure that they have the skill set to be in the union. You pay a fee or dues, and then you also have to have a couple of recommendations. I believe it's 4, and I believe 2 of them can be outside of the industry, and 2 of them have to be in the industry and in the union and within good standing in the union. And the union kind of basically takes care of your contracts. I'm still kind of new to all of that. I don't fully understand everything because I've literally just joined the union not too long ago. But as far as I know they handle our contracts and like what's the lowest we can be paid and our health care and things of that nature.
No, that's good. That's good. Therez, your old hat with that. So what are there anything else?
Well, I'm new in the union too. I was working
on it in it. Wow.
Yeah, no, I was working on The Conjuring, and the cutter fitter actually basically walked me in. She was part of the union team, recruitment team or whatever, and she basically walked me in. So, but I just, I don't honestly pay attention to the rules and all of that stuff, because every job I get is not necessarily through the union. It's through the network of people that I've made. You may get a call. I may get a call one day and say, hey, listen, are you available in the next 2 weeks? Or like just in the last 5 months, I've gotten about 5 calls to work on different projects, and they didn't come through the union. So it's really, in this industry, especially this department, it's who it's who's going to bring you in, it's who's going to need your skill set for what it is that they're working on. Now, with the union being listed, I have hired people through the union because people weren't available. So we'd go to the union list and find seamstresses that way. But I've never got work through the union for myself. No.
Mhm.
Yeah, same here.
Who's that?
No, I was saying same here. None of my projects have come through the union. It's networking, and the union protects you.
Right.
Networking actually gets you the job.
Mhm.
So, but the union does protect you. That's what I'll say about that.
So just in terms of salary, pay, wages, is it good? I mean, in the costume department, does it pay well?
Yeah, I'm content. It's affording me to make a lateral move.
I would say on a norm where, yeah.
And the good thing,
working on set, I feel like set money is different money though, because you tend to work longer hours. So you might get, that time and a half more often, or you might get that double time more often, in comparison to maybe working in the office. But then also, like for Michelle, if she's out shopping or buying, she's getting mileage and whatever other little perks and stuff. So, sometimes you end up getting
I love the perks.
Yeah, you love some perks.
Discounts. Oh my
Discounts.
God.
Do you get to take clothes home? Do you get to take clothes?
Oh,
when they wrap? Yeah.
That is one of the perks, especially like vintage wear, that they're like, oh, we don't want that. I have so many vintage from working on sets that is like, literally that is a perk. Perks of knowing the actual salesperson. They're like, oh yeah, we'll take 40% off, or you can use your, I think it's like Kohl's, where Kohl's Cash.
Mm-hmm.
Because I that was like it's like the go-to for the mom with the kids or whatever. So I was like, okay, let me go there so I can get Kohl's Cash, because I can use it for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of perks when it comes to being a buyer.
Oh, that sounds cool. Everybody go to Michelle's house for
I know. I was just thinking that.
No, that's really cool. I wanted to ask something else. Brocky, did you have any other questions? We're gonna wind down soon. Or did you all have any questions amongst each other? Mm-mm. We always want to go to what's your advice, but we kind of did something like that in terms of you're interested in being a stylist or designer, and you all just talked about the networking aspect of it and honing your craft. So that was a good thing.
I think it was really interesting also, Therez, where you talked about some people that came out of school still didn't have those skills. So it's really about learning. Your ability to learn is not necessarily that you have to get that 4-year college degree, but if you learn those technical skills, right, and you build your portfolio, you have a way in. So I'm just thinking about all those, we got heritage of people that was sewing and making quilts and knew how to do seamstress, and those skills get passed down, and just being able to hone in on those and perfect those to build a portfolio, you can still get your foot in the game, right, and doing some networking. I think that's really key of taking advantage of that opportunity, right?
And absolutely. If you have the tenacity for it, because I'll say, even with me coming in with some of my background, there's a lot that I still didn't know. And Therez and a couple other people on Coming to America were very open with sharing their knowledge with me, down to knowing how to thread a needle and how to knot knot the thread and show me different stitches. So if you have the tenacity and you really want to learn and you are willing to go for it and ask, because people aren't going to give it to you now.
Mhm.
You got to go for it. And I would be in these women's faces all the time, like, hey, so I'm interested in learning how to do da 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 da. Or, you know, also watching and paying attention and seeing what they do and listening to what they're saying and watching them. And all the women, and I'm gonna be real specific about this too. It's majority women, at least on my journey, that have helped me, and majority Black women who have helped me on my journey and have been so open and so gracious and so willing to teach and to also be a listening ear. You know what I mean? And I think that's so important in this industry too. Like there's a couple of women who I work with where it's like I genuinely trust them and I know that they have my best interest at heart and they don't mind teaching me and being there for me. And I think that's beyond important in this industry, especially being a minority.
Yeah, this has been really enlightening. I mean, you know, I don't know about Atlanta, but I know one of the places to start, like we said, PA, but your local film commission, I know here in San Antonio, they have a crew list online. So if you have a specialized skill, you can go to that crew list, put in your information. So when productions come to town, they oftentimes search that crew list. So that typically is in different cities. I don't know. You all are beyond that stage. But those just as well get it started. Yeah, get it started. That may be an entree in. And I just think it's important. Like this type of dialogue is important for those looking on who have a specific interest, like fashion or sewing or seamstressing, but don't know what to do with it and don't know that there is the potential for profits and also expanding your passion is really key. So, ladies, this has been wonderful.
This is awesome.
Thank you all. I want you all to each say how we can reach you, how they can support your ventures, your personal ventures. Give your website. This is your pitch time. Let's start with you at the top, and then we'll just make our way down to Soraya.
Okay, so my name, as you see it, TherezFleetwood.com. TherezFleetwood.com, and all my contact information is on the site.
Okay. Michelle.
My info is wardrobebyshelby.com. Everything from Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, everything is Wardrobe by Shelby. And I also have an online store. It's Mod Instinct. Mod is keeping it simple. So that's pretty much, who I am.
And you guys can follow me on Instagram at meet_Soraya, and Soraya is spelled on the screen as well. And you know, I'd be out in the streets and stuff too. I'd be partying, just watching shows, you know. I do a little of this, do a little of that. So my page is kind of fun. So yeah, follow me at Meet Soraya.
Okay, Rocky, just talk about the quilters. Let's put you in there, darling. Go ahead and talk.
Oh yeah, this Afro-American Quilt Circle of San Antonio. We do narrative story quilts. We have exhibits at San Antonio Carver Cultural Museum, as well as the Texas Institute of Cultures, where we really focus on retelling those histories that have been left out, those stories and narratives, and bringing them together via fiber. And so definitely check out Facebook and Instagram for African American Quilt Circle. AAQCSA is how you can find them, both on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay. You all, thank you. I'm going to give you my own applause. We have an audience in the background. You all take care. Continue being the powerful, impactful sisters that you are, and hopefully we'll get more into the fold under the costumes departments. Thank you, and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.